What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we'll be continuing the scenario that involves Goku being raised by King Kai, or I guess Kakarot in this case. In case you haven't seen the last part, you should probably check it out because there is a lot there that you're going to need explained. As a brief refresher, we got through a lot of Dragon Ball so far. We went all the way up to the Saiyan saga, and there's no Android saga, so we're pretty much done with that too. But obviously there's still a lot more to cover. So today, we're obviously going to be continuing that. For this part, let's hit a like goal of 3,000 likes, and once we hit that, I'll continue the series with another part. Anyways, let's pick up from here. So as mentioned already, there's no androids here. No 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, anything. There's no future Trunks either because with no androids, there's no need for a timeline anomaly. That's due to what happened in the first part, where Kakarot completely eliminated the Red Ribbon Army, kind of future-proofing Earth in a way by preventing this. But of course, the androids are far from the last enemies that are faced in Dragon Ball. This does mean we're going to have a considerable time skip though. At some point over this time, Kakarot's tail suddenly just grows back. This hasn't happened to him yet, he got it removed before but now it's back somehow? So why is this? While we didn't see it with Vegeta or Gohan after a certain point, this still has happened before with Goku and Gohan. And that hasn't happened for Kakarot yet in this scenario. Plus, I wanted to do it because it makes the design look nicer and because I have some plans for it. Tails barely have logic in the show as is, so why not here as well? Following the Saiyan saga, Krillin would occasionally leave Earth to train, while also bringing along his rival Tenshinhan. King Kai's fine having those two students from Earth. They both seem very promising and Krillin was already great as is. Ten definitely had a weird upbringing, but he has a good heart now, and by all means he is pretty strong for an Earthling. After seeing his friend Krillin getting so strong, he kinda wanted to get in on that too. Thankfully Kami and King Kai were gracious enough to allow this. But the thing is, there's been way more years that have passed since the Saiyan saga. At least, peaceful years. The next thing would naturally be the Buu saga, which we'll cover later on in this video. And that's over a decade away from when the Saiyan saga happened, so there's a lot that we're going to need to cover from that beforehand. Training goes very well on King Kai's planet, but everyone eventually starts seeing diminishing gains, especially Kakarot. King Kai has a great solution though. For Krillin and Tenshinhan, they can train with some people in Otherworld. Kakarot does that too, but King Kai has better plans for him. By now Kakarot's well aware that there's other Kais, people above King Kai even. King Kai is so impressed with the student that he decides to take him to the Supreme Kai. And honestly, Kakarot is kinda nervous about this. Someone above King Kai. He never could have even imagined that a few years ago. But he looks forward to it. He's gonna get a lot stronger by doing this. And to be fair, it's pretty beneficial for King Kai since his planet is kinda small, and they're not growing fast anymore on there. This means he'll finally have some more space there that he desperately needs. Kakarot starts training with Shin and Kibito, who are able to tell him more about his Saiyan heritage. They wonder if there's a way for Kakarot to grow stronger, so they look into this. Sure, Kaioken is great for him and he's been able to push it up to really high levels. By now he probably even has times 100, which is insane. But it's not like he can use that forever. Kaioken is very strenuous. And even at lower levels like times 20, Kakarot just can't keep Kaioken activated permanently. They need to figure out ways to strengthen his base form first, and possibly see if there's any other steps for Saiyans. Kakarot first tries pulling the Z-Sword, but he definitely won't be able to do it just yet. But Shin eventually figures out something interesting, after researching with some help from the Namekians, who are safe by the way because Frieza never attacked their planet. Shin found out something really weird about Saiyans that no one knew before. Something called Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan God. Super Saiyan God seems kind of impossible right now though, because apparently to get it, you need 5 other Saiyans and only one exists at the moment. And the only other way to do that is for Kakarot to get God Ki somehow, and that'll take a lot of time. But, Super Saiyan, that actually seems doable. They don't know much about it, but it's apparently some sort of legend. A Saiyan transformation that can be accessed through anger or something. And it greatly increases the Saiyan's power once they access it. Still, information is sparse and vague about it, but it seems like there's enough to prove that it does exist. Thank you, Namekian Book of Legends. Because of you, Kakarot gets Super Saiyan in this scenario. Well, he at least works towards it first. And with his fighting expertise and some help from Shin and Kibito, he does get a lot stronger and eventually accesses this form. He can tell it's not as strong as Kaioken times 100, but it's stronger than many other multiplications of Kaioken. And it's way less strenuous, even in grade 1. Just like he was able to practice and perfect Kaioken somewhat, he wants to try and do that with Super Saiyan. It's a smart idea that'll allow him to use it more efficiently. And efficiency seems to be key with his training right now, so he decides to do this. It takes some more time, but eventually he does get grade 4 of Super Saiyan, struggling to figure out if he can go any higher. At least, any higher in terms of Super Saiyan. He did find another way to surpass his limits, but he's not too sure about how effective it is. Although he tests it out occasionally. And while he is with Shin and Kibito now, King Kai still does keep up with Kakarot. Obviously he's a student and pretty much his adoptive son, and he's amazed at how strong Kakarot has gotten in this short period of time. While Krillin and Ten are very strong, and King Kai could use them, King Kai has something that he wants to use Kakarot for. Something that the both of them will have fun with. the otherworld tournament. This is something that Kakarot has no experience with. Remember, he wasn't raised on Earth, so he has no experience with tournaments. He's only ever sparred with his friends or fought people who are threats to Earth. But a tournament definitely does sound fun, and it'll be a great way for him to test out his new powers. It's been very peaceful lately, so he kinda does need this. So he ends up taking some time away from his normal training to go to the tournament. And in the meantime, Krillin and Ten decide to head back to Earth. They heard a tournament is coming up there soon too. And one thing I want to mention here, I know in the anime the Otherworld tournament did happen before the Buu saga, but it's not really canon anyway, and for the sake of the scenario, I feel like it would be more interesting to have it take place at the same time, and you'll see why as the scenario goes on. Krillin and Ten head back to Earth, going to see their respective masters again. Thankfully, once again, Roshi and Shen are on good terms. After the whole King Piccolo thing, they put aside their differences once and for all. I mean, there was a lot to work out, but after all these years, I feel like eventually they'd have to put the past behind them. But that's just a little side note. The main focus here are obviously Krillin and Ten, who do end up entering the tournament. And clearly there's not too many strong fighters on Earth right now. There's one guy, Mr. Saiyan, who's apparently been the world tournament champ for a while, but in terms of strength he's nowhere near them. But there is someone else entering the tournament that wasn't there before. Well, with both their students gone, Roshi and Shen eventually stumbled upon a new student, through their indirect connection with Korin, a bodyguard of Korin's tower, who was pretty young before but is now an adult, and this is the first time Krillin and Tenshinhan meet him, since the Red Ribbon arc went so differently. Of course, I'm referring to Upa, and thank God I am finally able to use him in a scenario. I mean, Earth kinda did need a new fighter, some new blood that we haven't seen before. He's actually made some great progress, and although he doesn't match Tenshinhan and Krillin in terms of power, he is very strong now. This will be his first time entering the tournament. And I'll be honest, he's not going to be too involved in this part, but we're going to see a lot of him later on. So be sure to keep him in mind. The tournament starts pretty much without a hitch. And you know what, just for fun, even Roshi enters. He may as well have some fun too. Those four of course make it the farthest in the tournament, but naturally the final match is probably going to end up being between Krillin and Tenshinhan. Everything's gone pretty smoothly so far, but there is still a threat looming about. Those weird guys that got taken out at the first part of the tournament, Spopovich and Yamu. Something about them didn't seem right, at least not in comparison to where they were before. They are still possessed by Babidi and they're waiting for the time to strike. Although they haven't really found any strong fighters yet. They were waiting to see who gets to the finals to actually steal energy then. Krillin and Ten are ready to have a good fight, but then suddenly, Krillin is attacked. Since he's the strongest here, Spopovich and Yamu decide to take his energy, as soon as he and Ten power up into Kaioken. Huh, that kinda rhymes. But the thing is, they're not gonna be successful here. Shin and Kibito aren't here to help. And that's because Ten and Krillin were expecting this. They actually got this information from Kakarot before they headed back to Earth. They knew someone was going to attack but didn't know when, so they were prepared for this. And that's why they went Kaioken right away. They wanted to draw out whoever was going to attack them. Shin and Kibito feel that they can handle it on their own, and regardless, Babidi might not even be able to get enough energy if he needs. So when Spopovich and Yamu jump out at Krillin, he gets out of the way quickly as Tenshinhan defeats them, knocking them clean to the ground. Immediately they try and escape, and those two end up following. Oh yeah, and before they leave, Ten decides to make things easy and tell everyone he concedes, letting Krillin be declared the winner of the tournament, even though he technically left too. I mean, let's be honest, he was going to win anyways. While those two face Spopovich and Yamu, another tournament is happening in Otherworld, and it's definitely way more peaceful. With Super Saiyan, Kakarot's very strong now. He was before, but this is something else. It's crazy how strong it makes him. But there's one opponent that gives him trouble, that being Pikkon. See, Kakarot has a pretty big disadvantage here. Everyone in this tournament is dead besides him. And as we've seen, being dead actually helps you with fighting, especially when using something strenuous like Super Saiyan or Kaioken. But not just that, Pikkon is pretty powerful, and the fight between the two is pretty interesting. It's a huge spectacle, and Kakarot is forced to break out something that he didn't use before. He clued King Kai in on this, but this is the first time he's actually using it in practice. If he were dead, it would be way easier, and he'd be able to use this at higher levels, but he's still gonna break it out regardless. With his now perfect control of Super Saiyan, he stacks Kaioken on top of it, going Super Kaioken. This gives him a massive increase in power. It's the multiplier of Super Saiyan plus whatever multiplier of Kaioken he's using. And with how good he is with Kaioken and Super Saiyan, let's say he's going to be using times 10 here. This helps him a lot against Pikkon, and this technique is very taxing on his body, but it helps him win the tournament. But this Pikkon guy interests him a lot. He wants to see him again afterwards. I mean, that strength isn't something that Kakarot can just ignore. He begins talking with Pikkon after the tournament, and the two are very respectful towards each other, acknowledging the other's strength. Pikkon shows interest in that Kaioken technique. King Kai is very happy to hear this because it's something he can hold over West Kai. Would you look at that? West Kai's student is interested in North Kai's technique. But King Kai's laughter is cut short. He gets some news from Shin and Kibito about Earth. It seemed everything was going well, but Shin mentions that someone very strong is there. And even with Krillin and Tenshinhan's great power, this fighter, Deborah, he poses a pretty considerable threat. Krillin and Ten are en route to Babidi's ship, and Shin's worried about their safety, and he asks King Kai if he could bring Kakarot with him. Luckily, this tournament just finished, So King Kai runs over to Kakarot and tells him. Sadly, this meeting between him and Pikkon is cut short, but they'll meet later on once again. Shin teleports in, surprising all the other Kais there, immediately bringing Kakarot to Earth. Ten and Krillin are happy to see him, glad to have him here to help. And Shin fills him in on everything. Dabura sounds kinda concerning, but with Kakarot here they may be okay. They arrive at the ship and Babidi seems pretty angry. Spopovich and Yamu got no energy at all, so they're executed right away. But of course Babidi knows other fighters are there, and he sticks Dabura on them immediately. Dabura sees Shin and jumps up right towards him. But mid-air, he's then slammed down by Kakarot who goes Super Saiyan right away. Shin's worried that Kakarot may be giving a bit of energy, but he promises he'll finish this quickly. Dabura is angered by the sneak attack. Had he not been off guard, this wouldn't have happened, and he gets up ready to face this Kakarot guy. He sees the clothes he has and the symbol on his chest. A student of the Kais. He's ready to fight and ready to draw this out for as long as he needs. But Kakarot's not going to let that fly. For a very brief period, he jumps into Super Kaioken, but just Kaioken times 2. Little side note, this means he basically gets the same boost as Super Saiyan 2. But he doesn't want to give off too much energy, and this should be enough to defeat Dabura. He catches Dabura off guard, and with one powerful hit, he knocks the King of the Demon Realm unconscious. And as he falls to the ground, Tenshinhan and Krillin finish him off, killing him. Babidi watches from his ship terrified. All he has left are those two schmucks, Pui and Yakon, who are immediately defeated as the fighters enter the ship. He did get a bit of energy from Kakarot, but it's not nearly enough. And he panics trying to figure out another option. Maybe he can possess one of the fighters. But no luck. Krillin's obviously not going to go Majin, and Ten's heart has hardened since he's been evil, so he's resilient to this too. Ironically enough, Kakarot would probably be the most susceptible due to his Saiyan nature, but that's still not going to happen. He gave up his Saiyan ways a while ago since he was a kid, and his mental fortitude is way too much for Babidi to break through. So, Babidi's ship is blown up, killing Babidi inside. The only thing left is Boo's egg, which Shin gladly takes away to make sure it's safe. He thanks everyone for their help and is glad it went so smoothly, and he's sorry for sending Krillin and Tenshinhan in without knowing that Dabura was there. They're a little bummed that they didn't get to finish their match at the tournament, but it's fine. They can't go all out there anyways. It wouldn't be as fun without them being able to use their full abilities. But maybe Shin will allow them to fight on a place where they can do that? Oh, of course. As a reward, they get to fight each other on the Sacred World of Kais without worrying about destroying anything around them. As I've said, of course Krillin is going to win, but this allows the both of them to have a fun fight for once in a while. With Kakarot and Shin getting to see how far these two have gone. And that's when Kakarot brings up the idea of Pikkon training here. He mentions Pikkon to Shin and how strong he is. Maybe he'd be a good student here. And this is intriguing, they'll definitely have to look into that. And of course, they do. Over the next few years, Krillin and Ten move out to training here. With all their training in Otherworld, they do know some pretty interesting things. Including fusion, but the two of them can't use it for obvious reasons. I mean, look at Krillin's height and look at Ten's height. But this could be useful for some other people, because 3 of the students there are similar in height, and they might even know Pikkon in passing. With their training in Otherworld beforehand, I'm sure they would have met him eventually. And now they actually get to know him better over these next few years. And while he's not here, there is another fighter that they're thinking about. They've seen him occasionally since the tournament, but that young fighter Upa is pretty interesting. Upa was motivated by seeing Ten and Krillin's performance in the tournament, albeit a very brief performance. He wants to be as strong as possible, and he saw that those two humans were able to do it, so maybe he can too. As a guardian of Korrin's tower, I mean, it's only a matter of time before he climbs up there, meeting Korrin and eventually meeting Kami too. And especially with his strength, he can do that relatively easily now. Again, we'll see more of him next time, it's just worth mentioning right now. A few years pass and eventually, a visitor appears on Shin's planet. Someone that Shin knows all too well. It's Beerus, and of course Whis. By this time, Beerus would have awoken, and he'd probably still have his premonition about his Super Saiyan God. And wouldn't you know, apparently Shin has a Saiyan student. Funny enough, they actually do know about Super Saiyan God this time, and they tell Beerus that it's kind of a long way off for Kakarot. They can't do the ritual, but there is another way to get it. As mentioned before, if Kakarot finds a way to access God Ki, maybe he can access this form too. Of course, the prospect interests Beerus. And he thinks for a second, and then straight up asks a question. Would Kakarot like to train on his planet? Well, that kinda came out of nowhere. Kakarot's heard of Beerus, but he doesn't know too much about him, and this is the first time he's meeting Beerus. And to be honest, he is a little bit terrified of him. I mean, just listen to his title, God of Destruction. You'd have to be crazy to not be scared of that. Well, at least if you don't know Beerus' true personality. But jokes aside, Kakarot's a bit intimidated, but also intrigued. Before Kakarot goes though, he wants to test his strength against Beerus. Beerus says he could fight him with all he's got. Any transformations, any techniques, any weapons, he'll allow all of it. Kakarot goes in with a lower level of Kaioken. It does nothing. He goes on with Super Saiyan. It does nothing. He goes on with Super Kaioken. It does nothing. And then he breaks out something interesting. A while ago, he was actually able to pull out the Z-Sword, and that's what he's been training with Shin. Quickly he goes to grab it and swings it at Beerus. And instantly, Beerus breaks it, but then realizes what he just did. He glares at Kakarot, asking if that was the Z-Sword. Kakarot's terrified too. Oh god, what did he just do? He broke the Z-Sword! But that's not why Beerus is mad. It's because out of the Z-Sword comes Elder Kai. Beerus doesn't want to deal with this right now, so he grabs onto Kakarot and tells him to say goodbye, as he and Whis drag Kakarot away to Beerus' planet, with everyone else just looking on dumbfounded, both at the fact that Beerus just kidnapped one of Shin's students, the fact that he's even awake, and the fact that there's a new Kai there that they don't know anything about. Elder Kai is equally confused. Who are these three baldies on his planet? And why was Beerus here just now with a Saiyan? They have a lot of questions, but we're gonna have to wait for the next part until they get answered. So, we'll leave off here for now. So how do you think Kakarot's training is gonna go with Beerus? How do you think things will go for Tenshinhan, Krillin, and Pikkon? And as for Upa, what does his future hold? And very brief side note, do you think anything will happen with Frieza eventually? He's still screwing around somewhere in space. But you can leave all your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. And let's try to hit that like goal from the beginning of the video so we can get another part of this series. If you haven't already, why not subscribe? As well as hitting the bell icon to get notified about any future parts of this series, or any other videos that I upload on my channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.